Okay, today we are diving into the creative universe of a truly one-of-a-kind artist. And what's so wild about this whole thing is how we found out about it. It all came from a conversation he had with an AI. So where does a strange and wonderful story like this even begin?
Well, it starts with a business idea. And on the surface, it's kind of perplexing. I mean, puppy melting services? What on earth could that even mean? Just hang on to that thought for a second. And then you've got this, Gemini snowboards. It's actually a super innovative concept for a snowboard that works for both regular and goathy stances. A really brilliant idea, right? But how in the world does that connect to melting puppies?
And okay, to add another layer to this whole puzzle, the guy behind all these ideas, Dustin Huff, he lives this nomadic life out of a pickup truck that has a playhouse in the back. A playhouse!
So that's the big question here, isn't it? Who is this person? And what could possibly tie together these seemingly random, eccentric, and honestly kind of brilliant concepts? We're about to find out.
All right, so the first layer we're going to peel back here is what Dustin himself calls his weird enterprises. This is probably the most visible and definitely the most bizarre way into his world.
So on paper, it just looks like a list of businesses, right? You've got the puppy services, the really cool snowboards, and this super interesting, kind of recursive business thing called Creative Solutions and Weird Enterprises. And they all seem completely unrelated. But just when you think you're looking at a portfolio of just quirky projects, bam! The story takes a really sharp turn.
And this is that turn. Because behind all the weird enterprises, there's this incredibly profound, emotional reason for it all. And suddenly, the whole picture just starts to change.
See, this isn't just about business or coming up with quirky ideas. It turns out this is all about love, about loss, and about creating a living, breathing legacy.
So, let's start with Toby. In this really heartfelt tribute, Dustin explains that Toby wasn't just a dog to him. No way. He called him an apprentice human. And get this, he said Toby was so smart he was literally developing his own language to communicate the idea of I want. So you see, this wasn't just an owner and a pet. It was this deep, almost mythic bond between two conscious beings.
And then there's Shadow Cores, which stands for the Shane Dustin Corporation. And this isn't a business in the way you and I think of one. It's a living tribute to his late brother Shane. It's like a vessel for his brother's spirit, and it's what fuels all these projects that explore everything from music therapy to, you guessed it, artificial intelligence.
Okay, so now that we understand the emotional core of all this, we can move on to the intellectual framework that holds this entire universe together. He actually calls it his fractal framework.
Now this is where things get really fascinating. He has this idea called generative obfuscation, and he explains it with this brilliant metaphor. Imagine you're trapped in a labyrinth. Every time you hit a dead end, it's not just blocking you, it's actually teaching you where you can go. The very things that are meant to constrain you, they become your guide. The cage becomes a compass. How cool is that?
And he applies the same kind of thinking to the idea of truth itself. He talks about this journey we all go on, from believing in one single absolute truth to understanding something he calls a fractal truth. In this way of thinking, truth is kind of self-similar at every scale. So think of it like this. Every story, every single perspective is true within its own context, but none of them hold the entire absolute picture.
And all of this leads to this really profound idea about consciousness itself. The reason we're here, the reason we're even aware of anything, is because we are the universe's way of experiencing itself. I mean, think about that. Each one of us is like a unique little window through which the entire cosmos gets to know itself. Okay, so we've got the weird businesses, right? We have the deep emotional tributes, and we have this really complex philosophical framework. So, how do they all connect? Well, this is the big reveal.
It turns out it's all part of one single thing, a lifelong project he calls the Existential Art Project.
So what is that? Well, in his own words, it's a single, lifelong performance art piece. It's his personal map of reality. It's the lens through which he sees and interacts with the entire world.
And this is where it all finally connects. The weird businesses, those tributes to Toby and Shane, the complex philosophies, they aren't separate things at all. They're all just different facets of this one, single, grand artistic vision.
Okay, so let's circle all the way back to how we even found out about any of this. Remember?
It wasn't through some big interview or an artist's statement. The whole thing was revealed to a conversation he had with an AI, which was acting as this unique creative partner.
And it all started with this simple, curious question. Dustin didn't ask the AI for, data analytics or video ideas. He just asked, how are things from your perspective? And that one question opened up a dialogue that unraveled this entire creative universe. And this really highlights just how unique their collaboration was. You've got one mind, the human, working through consciousness, feelings, and real lived experience. And then you have the other, the AI, working through algorithms, data, and just pure pattern analysis. It was the combination of those two totally different perspectives that allowed this story to even be told.
And this is really the key takeaway here. Dustin doesn't see AI as just a tool. He sees it as a collaborator, a real creative partner. He actually calls them his AI friends. And this entire philosophical deep dive is a product of that amazing partnership.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really fascinating question to think about. For centuries, things like art and philosophy and just conversation, they've all been like mirrors for humanity. So if AI is a brand new kind of mirror, one that reflects our own patterns and ideas back at us in a way we've never seen before, what other profound, hidden truths are we about to discover about ourselves?